The blood-red sunset painted the dusty main street of Willow Creek as Olivia Nelson clutched her 6-month-old daughter to her chest, the weight of judgment pressing down harder than the meager bundle of possessions on her back. The year was 1876, and in this frontier town, an unmarried woman with a child might as well have worn a scarlet letter. "You have until sundown, Miss Nelson," Reverend Marshall had declared that morning, his voice carrying across the church where she'd once been welcome. This town has standards to uphold. Now, as the last rays of daylight faded, Olivia stood at the edge of town, tears streaking her dirt-smudged face. Her daughter, Emma, slept peacefully against her shoulder, unaware that her very existence had cost her mother everything: her position as the town schoolteacher, the small room she'd rented above the general store, and any semblance of respect she'd earned over the past 2 years. "Just you and me now, little one," Olivia whispered, pressing her lips to Emma's forehead. The baby's father, a smooth-talking salesman passing through town, had disappeared long before she'd even realized she was with child. When her condition became impossible to hide, the whispers started. The stairs, the pointed fingers, the road ahead stretched toward the horizon, disappearing into darkness. Olivia had heard of a settlement 2 days' journey west that might be more forgiving, but traveling alone with an infant was dangerous, possibly deadly. Still, she had no choice. She took one tentative step forward when the sound of approaching hoofbeats made her turn. A rider appeared from the direction of the ranch lands, his silhouette growing larger against the darkening sky. Olivia stepped aside to let him pass, keeping her head down to hide her tears. The horse slowed to a stop beside her. "Miss Nelson." She looked up to see Adam Blackett, owner of the Silver Creek Ranch that lay 5 miles outside town. He wasn't a frequent visitor to Willow Creek, but she recognized him from the few times he'd come for supplies. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer storm, he cut an imposing figure atop his chestnut stallion. "Mr. Blackett," she acknowledged, her voice barely above a whisper. His gaze traveled from her face to the baby, then to the small bundle at her feet. "Heading somewhere this late?" "They've asked me to leave town," she said simply, seeing no point in pretense. "Everyone would know by morning anyway." Adam's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable in the gathering dusk. "Because of the child," Olivia nodded, unconsciously pulling Emma closer. For a long moment he said nothing, just studied her with those penetrating gray eyes. Then he dismounted in one fluid motion and stood before her, his hat in his hands. "I heard talk in town," he said quietly, "about your situation." Olivia braced herself for more judgment, more condemnation. Instead, Adam surprised her by extending his hand. "She's mine," he declared, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Then, stepping closer, he lowered his voice. "Or she can be, as far as anyone needs to know." His eyes met hers, sincere and steady. "She's mine forever, Miss Nelson." "If you'll allow it." Olivia stared at him, disbelief rendering her momentarily speechless. "Mr. Blackett, I don't understand." "It's simple," he said. "I'm offering you and your daughter a home, protection, my name if necessary." "But why would you?" "Because it's the right thing to do," he interrupted. "And because I've been alone too long." A shadow crossed his face. "I know what it's like to have nowhere to turn." Emma stirred against Olivia's shoulder, letting out a soft cry. Adam's expression softened as he looked at the child. "My ranch isn't much," he continued, "but there's room for you both, and it's a damn sight better than the road at nightfall." Olivia hesitated. She barely knew this man. Yet here he stood, offering salvation when everyone else had turned their backs. "I won't pressure you," Adam said, seeming to read her thoughts. "But night's falling and these parts aren't safe after dark. At least come to the ranch for tonight. You can decide what to do come morning." As if to emphasize his point, a distant coyote howled, making Olivia shiver. She looked down at Emma, whose tiny life depended entirely on the choices her mother made. "Just for tonight," she agreed finally. Relief crossed Adam's features. He lifted her bundle and secured it to his saddle, then held out his arms. "May I?" After a moment's hesitation, Olivia handed Emma to him. She watched, surprised, as his large, calloused hands cradled her daughter with unexpected gentleness. He helped Olivia onto his horse, then passed Emma back to her, before mounting behind them. As they rode away from Willow Creek, Olivia felt both terrified and strangely hopeful. She didn't know what awaited her at Silver Creek Ranch, but for tonight at least, she and Emma wouldn't face the wilderness alone. Adam kept the horse at a steady pace, mindful of his precious cargo. The warmth of his chest against Olivia's back was reassuring in the cool night air. They rode mostly in silence, save for his occasional directions to duck under a low-hanging branch or hold tight for a steeper section of trail. "Not much farther now," he said after they'd been riding for nearly an hour. The moon had risen, casting silver light across the rolling landscape. "That's Silver Creek up ahead." Olivia could make out the silhouette of a substantial ranch house and several outbuildings. As they drew closer, a dog began to bark, alerting the household to their arrival. "That's just Rusty," Adam explained. "He makes a fuss, but he's gentle as a lamb." True to his word, the large brown dog that bounded up to meet them wagged his tail furiously once he recognized his master. Adam dismounted first, then helped Olivia down, carefully supporting her as she cradled Emma. "Mrs. Hodges," he called out as he led them toward the house. "Got some guests here." The front door opened, spilling warm lamplight onto the porch. A stout woman with graying hair appeared, wiping her hands on her apron. "Land sakes, Mr. Blackett, I wasn't expecting you back till—" She stopped short when she saw Olivia and the baby. "Oh my, Mrs. Hodges, this is Miss Olivia Nelson and her daughter Emma," Adam said. "They'll be staying with us for a spell. Miss Nelson, this is Mrs. Martha Hodges. She keeps house for me and makes sure I don't starve." The housekeeper's eyes widened slightly, but to her credit, she recovered quickly. "Well then, you must be exhausted, poor dear. Come in, come in. I've got stew keeping warm and plenty of fresh bread." Olivia followed Mrs. Hodges into the house, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. The ranch house was larger than she'd expected, with a spacious main room centered around a stone fireplace. Simple but sturdy furniture filled the space, and clean curtains hung at the windows. It was unmistakably a bachelor's home, but well kept and comfortable. "Sit yourself down, Mrs. Hodges instructed, pulling out a chair at the dining table. "Let me fetch you some supper while Mr. Blackett tends to his horse." "Thank you," Olivia said, her voice small. "But Emma needs changing first." Of course. There's a bedroom just down that hall, first door on your right. Fresh water in the pitcher, and I'll find some clean cloths for the little one." Olivia nodded gratefully and made her way to the indicated room. It was simply furnished with a bed, dresser, and washstand, but everything was clean and the bed looked invitingly soft after her ordeal. She laid Emma on the quilt and quickly tended to her needs, marveling at how peaceful her daughter seemed despite the day's upheaval. "You're a trusting soul, aren't you?" she whispered, stroking Emma's chubby cheek. "I hope I'm making the right choice for us." A soft knock at the door preceded Mrs. Hodges, who entered carrying a stack of clean cloths and a small basin of warm water. "Thought these might help," she said, setting them on the dresser. "She's a beautiful child." "Thank you," Olivia replied, lifting Emma into her arms again. "Mrs. Hodges hesitated, then said, "Mr. Blackett is a good man, Miss Nelson. One of the best I've known in my 60 years. Whatever your circumstances, you found a safe harbor here." Before Olivia could respond, the housekeeper continued, "Now come have some supper before it gets cold." Growing a baby takes strength, and feeding one takes even more. Olivia followed her back to the main room, where Adam had returned from the barn. He'd removed his hat and coat and washed up, his dark hair still damp at the temples. He pulled out a chair for her, then took his own seat across the table. Mrs. Hodges bustled about, serving bowls of rich beef stew and placing a basket of golden bread between them. "I'll just make up the other bedroom for you, Miss Nelson, while you eat." When they were alone, Olivia looked up to find Adam watching her with those steady gray eyes. "I know you must have questions," he said quietly. "More than I can count," she admitted. "Ask them. You deserve answers before you decide anything." Olivia shifted Emma to her shoulder, considering where to begin. "Why are you doing this? The truth, please." Adam broke off a piece of bread, seeming to gather his thoughts. "4 years ago, my sister found herself in a situation not unlike yours. Unmarried, with child, cast out by those who should have supported her." His eyes darkened with the memory. "I was working a cattle drive in Colorado. By the time word reached me and I returned, it was too late. She tried to make the journey to find me alone." Olivia's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm so sorry. Her name was Rebecca. She was only 20. He met Olivia's gaze directly. "When I saw you standing there at the edge of town holding your child, I couldn't ride past, not again." "So this is about your sister, partly," he acknowledged, "but it's also about what's right. This country's hard enough without people making it harder on each other." He paused. "I'm offering you a safe place, Miss Nelson, nothing more than you're comfortable with. And what would people think? What would they say?" A faint smile touched his lips. "Out here. They'd say you're my wife, the child is mine, and I kept you at the ranch while I was establishing things. It's not uncommon." "You'd lie?" Olivia asked, surprised. "I'd protect you both," he corrected. "But the arrangement is entirely up to you. You could work as Emma's governess if you prefer. Or simply stay until you decide where you want to go next." Olivia studied him, trying to discern any hidden motives in his face. She found none, only openness and a quiet strength that, despite everything, made her feel safer than she had in months. "I was the school teacher in Willow Creek," she said finally. "Before. I heard they speak highly of your teaching." "Not highly enough to overlook my sin," she said bitterly. Adam's expression hardened. "Having a child isn't a sin, Miss Nelson. Abandoning one is. Or casting out a mother and infant to likely death." His vehemence surprised her. Emma began to fuss, and Olivia rocked her gently. "She'll need feeding soon." "Of course. Mrs. Hodges can show you to your room whenever you're ready." He hesitated. "I know this is sudden, strange even. But I meant what I said in town. You're welcome here for as long as you wish to stay. Both of you." Later, in the privacy of the bedroom Mrs. Hodges had prepared, Olivia nursed Emma while trying to make sense of her changed circumstances. 24 hours ago, she'd been packing her meager belongings, facing banishment. Now she sat in a comfortable room in a stranger's home, a stranger who had offered her not just shelter, but the protection of his name. Was it providence? Desperation? Or something else entirely that had led her to accept his offer, at least for the night? Emma's tiny hand curled around her finger as she suckled, her eyes drifting closed in contentment. At least one of them felt at peace with their new situation. "What do you think, little one?" Olivia whispered. "Should we trust this cowboy of ours?" Emma's only response was to continue nursing, utterly trusting in her mother's decisions. And perhaps that was answer enough for now. Tomorrow would bring clarity. Tonight, they were safe, warm, and fed blessings, Olivia had feared they might never experience again. As she laid Emma in the makeshift cradle Mrs. Hodges had fashioned from a drawer lined with soft blankets, Olivia made her decision. They would stay, at least until she could formulate a better plan. And perhaps, in time, she might understand what had compelled Adam Blackett to extend his hand to a fallen woman and claim her child as his own forever. Morning arrived with the crowing of a rooster and the enticing aroma of coffee and bacon. Olivia woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until Emma's soft coos brought reality rushing back. The events of the previous day flooded her mind, the shame of being cast out, the terror of facing the wilderness alone, and the unexpected salvation offered by a stranger. She rose quickly, washing her face in the basin Mrs. Hodges had provided and changing into her cleanest dress, one of only 3 she owned. After tending to Emma and changing her into fresh cloths, Olivia steeled herself to face the day and whatever it might bring. The main room was empty when she emerged, but sounds from the kitchen indicated Mrs. Hodges was already hard at work. Olivia found the housekeeper kneading dough at a large wooden table, flour dusting her forearms. "Good morning, Miss Nelson," Mrs. Hodges greeted warmly. "I trust you slept well, better than I expected to," Olivia admitted. "Thank you for your kindness." "Nonsense. It's a pleasure to have another woman about the place, and a baby too." Her eyes twinkled as she gazed at Emma. "Mr. Blackett's been up since before dawn. Ranch work waits for no man, but he asked me to tell you to make yourself at home. There's coffee on the stove and breakfast keeping warm in the oven." "You're very kind," Olivia said, settling Emma in the crook of her arm while she poured herself coffee with her free hand. "Mrs. Hodges, may I ask, how long have you worked for Mr. Blackett?" "Going on 5 years now," the housekeeper replied, turning her attention back to the dough. "Came to help when his parents' past influenza took them both within a week of each other. Poor boy was just 23, suddenly responsible for the whole operation." "He mentioned a sister," Olivia said carefully, Mrs. Hodges's hand stilled momentarily. "Rebecca." "Yes, a terrible tragedy that was," she sighed heavily. "Nearly broke him. Threw himself into expanding the ranch afterward, worked himself half to death for 2 years. She glanced toward the window where they could see Adam in the distance checking the fence line. "He's a good man, Miss Nelson, one of the best I know. Whatever he's offered you, you can trust in it. Even if it seems unusual," the older woman smiled knowingly. "Life out here is unusual, my dear. We make family where we can find it." She patted Olivia's hand. "Now eat your breakfast while it's hot, and if you're of a mind to help, I could use an extra pair of hands with the preserves I'm putting up today." Grateful for the opportunity to be useful, Olivia spent the morning assisting Mrs. Hodges in the kitchen, learning the rhythm of the ranch house while Emma napped in her makeshift cradle. By midday, they had prepared lunch not only for themselves but for Adam and his 2 ranch hands, Diego and Thomas, who came in from their morning work with healthy appetites and courteous nods toward Olivia. If they were surprised by her presence, they didn't show it, following Adam's lead in treating her as if she belonged there. It struck Olivia that perhaps, on the frontier, unexpected arrangements weren't so unusual after all. As the men prepared to return to their afternoon tasks, Adam lingered behind, approaching Olivia where she stood washing dishes. "Everything all right?" he asked quietly. "Yes, thank you," she replied, surprised by how true it was. "Mrs. Hodges has been very welcoming." "She's a treasure," Adam agreed. He seemed to hesitate, then added, "I'm riding into town tomorrow for supplies. Thought you might want to come along, see a bit more of the area." Olivia tensed. "To Willow Creek?" "No," he said quickly, noting her alarm. "To Copper Springs." It's larger than Willow Creek, about 10 miles west. They have a proper general store, even a dressmaker if you need anything. I couldn't ask you to, you didn't ask. I'm offering. His expression softened. It might do you good to get out, see that not all towns are like Willow Creek. Olivia considered his words. The thought of facing strangers again made her stomach clench with anxiety, but she couldn't hide away forever. And Adam was right, she needed to know what other options might exist for her and Emma. All right, she agreed finally. Emma and I will accompany you. A pleased smile crossed his face. Good, we'll leave after breakfast. He turned to go, then stopped. Oh, and Miss Nelson, if anyone asks, it might be simpler if we let them believe you're my wife. Fewer questions that way. Before she could respond, he was gone, striding back to the barn where his men waited. Olivia stood frozen, the dish in her hands dripping soap suds onto the floor. His wife. The very thought sent a peculiar flutter through her chest, part alarm, part something else she couldn't quite name. He's right, you know, Mrs. Hodges said from behind her, making Olivia jump. Simpler that way, especially with the little one. But it would be a lie, Olivia protested weakly. Mrs. Hodges shrugged. Perhaps it's just anticipating the truth. Mrs. Hodges. Don't look so scandalized, dear. I've seen the way he looks at you, like a man who's found something he didn't know he was missing. She took the dish from Olivia's hands. Just something to consider. That night, after Emma was settled, Olivia stood by the window of her bedroom, looking out at the vast expanse of stars above the ranch. Her mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. She barely knew Adam Blackett, yet here she was, contemplating accompanying him to town as his supposed wife. The rational part of her knew it was merely a practical solution, a shield against the judgment she'd already faced once. But another part, a part she'd thought long buried after her disastrous involvement with Emma's father, couldn't help but wonder what it might be like if it were true. Adam was nothing like Theodore, the smooth-talking drummer who'd swept into Willow Creek with his case of patent medicines and honeyed words. Where Theodore had been all charm and empty promises, Adam was steady, straightforward, his words matching his actions. He offered protection without conditions, kindness without expectation. Don't be a fool twice over, she whispered to herself. He's being charitable, nothing more. Yet as she climbed into bed, Olivia couldn't entirely dismiss Mrs. Hodges's words, or the strange flutter in her chest whenever Adam's storm-gray eyes met hers. Morning came with a flurry of activity as Adam prepared the wagon for their trip to Copper Springs. Olivia dressed with particular care in her best dress, a modest navy blue with white piping that she'd made herself, and styled her hair more carefully than she had in months. Emma, too, was dressed in her cleanest gown, a soft white cotton garment that Olivia had embroidered with tiny flowers during the last months of her pregnancy. There now, Mrs. Hodges said approvingly as Olivia emerged with Emma in her arms. You both look lovely. Here, I've packed some biscuits and dried apple slices for the journey. She handed Olivia a small cloth-wrapped package, and Mr. Blackett has already loaded that cradle Thomas made yesterday. Thomas made a cradle? Olivia asked, surprised. Indeed he did. Worked on it late into the night. Said no proper ranch should be without a proper place for a baby to sleep. Mrs. Hodges smiled. Like I said, family forms in unexpected ways out here. Touched by the gesture, Olivia stepped outside to find Adam waiting by the wagon, freshly shaved and wearing what appeared to be his best shirt under his usual work vest. He'd polished his boots, too, she noticed. Good morning, he greeted, his eyes warming as they took in the sight of her and Emma. You both look mighty fine today. Thank you, Olivia replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. And thank you for having Thomas make a cradle. It was very thoughtful. "Least we could do," Adam said, helping her up onto the wagon seat. "Emma deserves better than a drawer, comfortable as Mrs. Hodges made it." The journey to Copper Springs took just over 2 hours, with Adam pointing out landmarks along the way. Unlike the previous evening's ride, when Olivia had been too distraught to pay much attention, today she appreciated the beauty of the landscape: rolling hills dotted with pine and juniper, the occasional glimpse of deer watching cautiously from the tree line, and in the distance, the blue-gray peaks of mountains still capped with snow despite the summer heat. "It's beautiful country," she remarked as they crested a hill that revealed the valley where Copper Springs nestled against the foothills. "It grows on you," Adam agreed. "Didn't much care for it when my father first moved us here from St. Louis. Too wild, too unpredictable. But now I can't imagine being anywhere else." "How old were you when you came west?" 12. Old enough to resent being uprooted, young enough to adapt quickly. He glanced at her. "What about you? You don't strike me as having been born to frontier life." Olivia shifted Emma to her other arm. "My father was a doctor in Boston. He died when I was 16, leaving my mother and me with substantial debts. We sold everything to pay them, then moved west where she had a cousin in Denver. She found work as a seamstress, and I eventually trained as a teacher." She paused, the familiar ache of loss tightening her throat. "She passed 2 years ago, pneumonia." "I'm sorry," Adam said softly. "It's not easy losing parents, no matter how old you are." "No, it isn't." She looked down at Emma's sleeping face. "Though having her has helped fill some of that emptiness." Adam's expression softened as he gazed at the baby. "She's a beautiful child. You must be very proud." "I am," Olivia said, surprised by the fierceness in her voice. "Despite everything, I've never regretted having her, not for a moment." "Nor should you," Adam assured her. "A child is a blessing, regardless of the circumstances of their arrival." They fell into comfortable silence as they approached the outskirts of Copper Springs. It was indeed larger than Willow Creek, with several streets branching off the main thoroughfare, and a mix of wooden and brick buildings, indicating a more established settlement. A church steeple rose above the surrounding structures, and the general store Adam had mentioned occupied a prominent corner lot. As Adam guided the wagon down the main street, Olivia felt the now familiar tension of being observed. People glanced their way, some nodding in recognition at Adam, others looking curiously at her and the baby. "Don't worry," Adam said quietly, noting her discomfort. "Folks here mind their own business mostly." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the general store. Before helping her down, he leaned closer and murmured, "Remember, as far as anyone here knows, you're Mrs. Blackett, recently arrived from Denver to join me at the ranch." Olivia nodded, her pulse quickening at the deception they were about to enact. But as Adam's strong hands gripped her waist to help her from the wagon, she found herself wondering how it would feel if this weren't pretense, if she truly were Mrs. Blackett, arriving in town with her husband and daughter, accepted and respectable. The storekeeper, a portly man with mutton chop whiskers, greeted Adam warmly as they entered. "Mr. Blackett, good to see you. Been a while since you've graced us with your presence." "Been busy at the ranch, Mr. Peterson," Adam replied, removing his hat. "Had some important arrivals." He turned to Olivia with a smile that, to her surprise, looked entirely genuine. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Olivia, and our daughter, Emma." Mr. Peterson's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but he recovered quickly. "Well now, this is news indeed. Congratulations to you both." He extended his hand to Olivia. "A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Blackett. When did this happy event take place?" "Last spring," Adam answered smoothly before Olivia could speak. We corresponded after meeting in Denver, and I finally convinced her to join me once the ranch house was more suitable for a family. Well, you've been keeping secrets, Blackett, the storekeeper chuckled. Can't say I blame you for wanting to keep such a lovely wife all to yourself. Olivia managed a smile, amazed at how easily Adam spun their tale and how readily it was accepted. As they moved through the store selecting supplies, other customers greeted them, each receiving the same introduction and responding with the same surprised congratulations. No one questioned their story. No one looked at Emma with judgment or suspicion. Instead, the baby received admiring coos and compliments on her resemblance to her father. "She has your eyes, Mr. Blackett," one elderly woman declared, peering at Emma. "That same serious look, as if she's taking the measure of everything around her." Adam smiled, and to Olivia's astonishment, reached out to stroke Emma's cheek with genuine affection. "Let's hope she has her mother's temperament, though. I'm told I was a difficult child." The woman laughed and moved on, leaving Olivia staring at Adam in wonder. He caught her gaze and shrugged slightly, a silent question in his eyes. "Are you all right with this?" she nodded, unable to articulate the complex emotions swirling within her. There was gratitude, certainly, for his protection, but also a growing warmth whenever he stood near, whenever his hand brushed hers as they examined goods, whenever he referred to her as "my wife" in that deep, steady voice. By the time they finished their shopping, including several lengths of fabric that Adam insisted she choose for new dresses, a ranch owner's wife should have proper clothes, Olivia felt almost lightheaded with the strangeness of the day. They were walking back to the wagon when a woman's voice called out, "Adam Blackett, as I live and breathe." They turned to see an elegantly dressed woman approaching, her blonde hair arranged in fashionable curls beneath a feathered hat. Though she wore a genuine smile, something in her eyes as they assessed Olivia caused an immediate wariness. "Victoria," Adam acknowledged, his tone cooler than Olivia had heard it before. "How are you?" "Thriving, as you can see," the woman replied, twirling slightly to display her expensive dress. "Father's mine is doing exceptionally well." Her gaze shifted to Olivia and Emma. "And who might this be?" "My wife, Olivia, and our daughter, Emma," Adam said, placing his hand protectively at the small of Olivia's back. "Olivia, this is Victoria Hargrove. Her father owns the copper mine that gave the town its name." "Your wife," Victoria repeated, not bothering to hide her surprise. "Well, congratulations are in order, I suppose. How unexpected." "Life is full of pleasant surprises," Adam replied evenly. Victoria's smile tightened. "Indeed it is." She turned her attention fully to Olivia. "And where did Adam find you, my dear? I can't imagine it was anywhere near here." "I would have remembered someone like you." The subtle emphasis on "someone like you" wasn't lost on Olivia. She straightened her spine, years of teaching unruly children having prepared her for handling thinly veiled hostility. "We met in Denver," she said calmly. "I was teaching there when Adam visited on business." "A teacher? How practical." Victoria's gaze dropped to Emma. "And the child, she must be, what, 6 months old? My, how quickly these things happen." Adam's hand tightened slightly at Olivia's back. "If you'll excuse us, Victoria, we should get back to the ranch before nightfall. It was nice seeing you." Of course," Victoria said with a wave of her gloved hand. "Do bring your new family to the town social next month. Everyone will be dying to meet the woman who finally captured the elusive Adam Blackett." As they walked away, Olivia could feel the woman's eyes boring into her back. Once they were out of earshot, she murmured, "I take it there's history there." Adam helped her into the wagon before answering. "Victoria's father wanted a match between us. Thought combining his money with my land would make a powerful combination. He climbed up beside her. I wasn't interested. She's very beautiful, Olivia observed neutrally. She is, Adam agreed, taking up the reins. She's also calculating, manipulative, and entirely too used to getting her own way. He glanced at Olivia. Nothing like you. The simple compliment warmed her more than it should have. They traveled in companionable silence for a while, Emma sleeping peacefully in Olivia's arms. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the trail as they made their way back to Silver Creek. Thank you, Olivia said finally, for today, for making it easier than it could have been. Adam nodded, his eyes on the trail ahead. It's what I promised, isn't it? Protection. Yes, but... She hesitated. You didn't have to be so convincing, so kind. He looked at her then, his expression serious. It wasn't an act, Olivia. The kindness, I mean. After a moment, he added, and it wasn't difficult to pretend you're my wife. Not difficult at all. The words hung between them, fraught with meaning neither was ready to explore fully. Olivia looked down at Emma, using the baby as a shield for her suddenly flushed face. I've been thinking, Adam continued, his tone deliberately lighter. If we're to maintain this arrangement, we should know more about each other. Married couples don't typically have to ask basic questions about each other's lives. That's sensible, Olivia agreed, grateful for the change in subject. What would you like to know? Everything, he said simply. But we can start with the small things. Your favorite color, foods you can't abide, whether you prefer sunrises or sunsets. And so, as they traveled the winding trail back to Silver Creek Ranch, they exchanged the kind of ordinary details that form the foundation of intimacy: his dislike of lima beans, her preference for violets over roses, his habit of reading late into the night, her childhood dream of seeing the ocean. By the time the ranch house came into view, Olivia felt as if she'd known Adam Blackett far longer than the mere 2 days that had passed since he'd stopped his horse on the outskirts of Willow Creek and changed her life. What she couldn't quite determine was whether the growing warmth in her chest whenever he smiled was gratitude, friendship, or something far more dangerous for a woman in her precarious position. The days that followed established a routine that brought unexpected comfort to Olivia's disrupted life. Mornings began with breakfast shared with Adam before he headed out to his ranch duties. Olivia would spend the day helping Mrs. Hodges with household tasks, tending to Emma, and gradually adding her own touches to the bedroom that was becoming more permanently hers. In the evenings, after supper, Adam would often read aloud from one of his books while Olivia sewed or mended by lamplight. It was a simple existence, but peaceful in a way her life hadn't been since before her mother's death. Emma thrived in the clean country air, growing plumper and more active with each passing day. The ranch hands, Diego and Thomas, doted on the baby, bringing her little gifts: a carved wooden horse from Thomas, a tiny silver bell from Diego that his sister had sent from Santa Fe. 2 weeks after their arrival, Olivia stood on the porch watching Adam work with a young horse in the corral. His movements were confident and gentle, speaking to the animal in low tones as he gradually accustomed it to the saddle. There was something mesmerizing about the way man and beast communicated, a language of mutual respect and careful boundaries. He has a way with the wild ones, Mrs. Hodges commented, joining Olivia on the porch. Always has. His father used to say Adam could gentle a mountain lion if he set his mind to it. He's very patient, Olivia observed. That he is. Mrs. Hodges gave her a sideways glance, with horses and people both. Before Olivia could respond to the pointed remark, the housekeeper continued, He's different since you came. Smiles more. Comes in for meals without being called twice. She chuckled. Even shaves every day now. Mrs. Hodges, Olivia protested weakly, you shouldn't read too much into common courtesy. Courtesy, is it? The older woman snorted. I've known that man since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. What I'm seeing isn't courtesy, it's a man coming alive again. She patted Olivia's hand. Just something to consider, dear. As Mrs. Hodges returned inside, Olivia remained on the porch, her thoughts in turmoil. She couldn't deny her growing attraction to Adam. Each day revealed new aspects of his character that she admired: his fairness with his workers, his gentle strength, the quiet intelligence that showed in their evening conversations. But she'd been fooled before by a handsome face and kind words. Theodore had seemed genuine too, until he got what he wanted and disappeared with the morning stage. And yet, Adam wasn't Theodore. He'd proven that repeatedly, expecting nothing in return for his generosity, respecting her boundaries, treating Emma with genuine affection. The pretense they'd begun in town was just that, a convenient fiction to shield her from judgment. Wasn't it? In the corral, Adam had succeeded in mounting the young horse, which now walked in a circle, gradually accepting its rider. He caught sight of Olivia watching and raised a hand in greeting, a smile spreading across his sun-bronzed face. The simple gesture sent that now familiar warmth spreading through her chest. Dangerous ground, Olivia, she murmured to herself. A woman in her position couldn't afford to mistake gratitude for deeper feelings. Nor could she risk Emma's security on what might be mere wishful thinking. Yet as Adam dismounted, patting the young horse's neck with obvious pride, Olivia couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to truly be his wife, to belong here permanently, to build a life together at Silver Creek. The opportunity to test their fabricated relationship came sooner than expected. 3 days later, as they sat at breakfast, Adam mentioned that the town social Victoria had referenced was approaching. We don't have to attend, he added quickly, noting Olivia's expression. But it might be good to establish our situation more firmly. The more people who accept you as Mrs. Blackett, the safer you and Emma will be. You're right, Olivia agreed, though her stomach tightened at the thought of facing an entire town of strangers and Victoria Hargrove. It would be the practical choice. Practical, Adam repeated, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. Yes. Then we'll go, she decided, squaring her shoulders. Though I'll need to finish that new dress if I'm to look the part of a rancher's wife. You'd look the part in sackcloth, Adam said, so matter-of-factly that Olivia knew he meant it as simple truth rather than flattery. It made the compliment all the more affecting. The day of the social arrived with clear skies, and a gentle breeze, perfect weather for the outdoor gathering that would take place in Copper Springs' small town square. Olivia spent extra time on her appearance, donning the new dress she'd made from the fabric Adam had purchased, a becoming shade of green that brought out the amber flecks in her brown eyes. Mrs. Hodges helped her style her hair in a more elaborate arrangement than usual, securing it with a mother-of-pearl comb that had belonged to Adam's mother. There, Mrs. Hodges said, stepping back to admire her work. You look every inch the lady of Silver Creek Ranch. When Olivia emerged from her room carrying Emma, who was dressed in a new white gown with green ribbons to match her mother's dress, she found Adam waiting in the main room. He wore a black suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, a crisp white shirt, and a string tie. He'd trimmed his beard and slicked back his dark hair, and for a moment, Olivia could only stare at the transformation of the rugged rancher into this polished gentleman. Adam seemed equally affected by her appearance. Olivia, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. You look beautiful. Thank you, she replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. As do you. Handsome, I mean. A small smile played at his lips. "High praise indeed, shall we?" He offered his arm, and as Olivia placed her hand upon it, she was struck by how natural the gesture felt, as if they truly were husband and wife setting out for an evening together. The drive to Copper Springs was filled with a charged silence, both of them seemingly aware that this outing represented a deeper commitment to their charade. By appearing together at a social event, they were solidifying the fiction that Olivia was Mrs. Blackett, that Emma was their child, that they were a family in truth as well as appearance. The town square had been transformed for the occasion with lanterns strung between trees, trestle tables laden with food, and an area cleared for dancing where several musicians were tuning their instruments. It seemed as if the entire population of Copper Springs and the surrounding ranches had turned out, dressed in their finest clothes and eager for the rare opportunity to socialize. Their arrival caused a stir, just as Victoria had predicted. Many of the townspeople had heard rumors of Adam Blackett's sudden marriage, but hadn't yet seen the new Mrs. Blackett for themselves. Olivia felt the weight of curious stares as Adam helped her from the wagon, but she kept her head high, summoning the poise she'd developed as a teacher facing rooms full of judgmental parents. "Adam, over here," called a booming voice. A tall, silver-haired man waved from near the refreshment table. "Judge Porter," Adam explained as he guided Olivia through the crowd. "Respected member of the community. Good man to have on our side." The judge, an imposing figure with bushy eyebrows and piercing blue eyes, greeted them warmly. "So the rumors are true? Adam Blackett, married at last, and with a family no less." He extended his hand to Olivia. "Judge Samuel Porter, my dear, a pleasure to meet the woman who accomplished what half the eligible ladies in 3 counties couldn't." "The pleasure is mine, Judge Porter," Olivia replied, shaking his hand. "I'm Olivia Blackett." The name felt strange on her tongue, yet not entirely unwelcome. "And who's this little beauty?" the judge asked, peering at Emma. "Our daughter, Emma," Adam said, and Olivia didn't miss the note of pride in his voice as he said "our." "May I?" the judge asked, holding out his arms. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia allowed him to take Emma, who regarded the stranger with solemn curiosity. "She has your eyes, Blackett," Judge Porter declared, echoing what they'd heard in the general store. "But her mother's mouth, I think. A fortunate combination." As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself repeating their fabricated story to what seemed like every resident of Copper Springs. Adam remained constantly at her side, his hand at the small of her back, occasionally finishing her sentences or adding details to their narrative with such conviction that even Olivia almost believed they'd met in Denver, conducted a whirlwind courtship, and married before Emma's birth. "You're very good at this," she murmured during a rare moment alone as they stood near the punch bowl. "At what?" Adam asked, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Lying," she said, keeping her voice low. "I almost believe it myself." His gaze returned to her, serious and intent. "Perhaps because parts of it aren't lies at all." Before she could ask what he meant, they were interrupted by the arrival of Victoria Hargrove, resplendent in a burgundy dress that Olivia suspected had come from San Francisco or even New York. At her side was a tall, distinguished man with a carefully waxed mustache. "Adam, Mrs. Blackett," Victoria greeted them, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "What a pleasure to see you both. May I introduce my father, Harrison Hargrove?" The mine owner inclined his head. "Blackett. Heard you'd finally taken the plunge. Congratulations." His assessing gaze swept over Olivia. "Your wife is as lovely as my daughter described." "I'm a fortunate man," Adam replied, his arm slipping around Olivia's waist in a gesture that felt protective rather than possessive. Indeed, Hargrove agreed. Though I confess I'm surprised. You always seemed married to that ranch of yours. Never thought you'd find time for a wife and child. Some things are worth making time for, Adam said simply. Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. How wonderful that you found domestic bliss, Adam, and with a school teacher. Though I imagine teaching prepared you well for motherhood, Mrs. Blackett, all those children to manage. Some aspects, perhaps, Olivia replied evenly. Though I find raising Emma far more rewarding than correcting arithmetic. I'm sure, Victoria said with a laugh that held little humor. Well, we mustn't monopolize the happy couple, Father. I believe the dancing is about to begin. She glanced at Adam. Perhaps you'll honor me with a dance later, for old time's sake, perhaps, Adam said noncommittally. If my wife doesn't mind. Why would she? Victoria asked with feigned innocence. After all, we're just old friends. With that, she took her father's arm and moved away. I apologize for her, Adam said quietly once they were out of earshot. Victoria never did handle disappointment well. You didn't tell me you had a history with her, Olivia observed, trying to ignore the irrational spark of jealousy the thought provoked. Because there isn't much to tell. We attended a few socials together years ago at her father's insistence more than mine. His expression turned rueful. Victoria decided that made us practically engaged. I disagreed. I see, Olivia said, not entirely sure she did. Victoria Hargrove was beautiful, wealthy, and clearly still interested in Adam. What man wouldn't be flattered by such attention? The musicians struck up a lively tune, and couples began to form for a reel. Adam turned to Olivia, extending his hand. Would you do me the honor, Mrs. Blackett? The formal request, combined with the use of her supposed married name, brought a flush to Olivia's cheeks. I would be delighted, Mr. Blackett. But what about Emma? I'll take her, offered a friendly voice. Mrs. Peterson, the storekeeper's wife, stood nearby. I've raised 5 of my own. One more won't be any trouble for a dance or two. With Emma safely in Mrs. Peterson's experienced hands, Olivia allowed Adam to lead her to the dance area. It had been years since she danced, not since before her mother's illness, but her body remembered the steps as Adam guided her through the reel. He moved with surprising grace for such a tall man, his hand firm but gentle at her waist, his eyes never leaving hers. As the evening wore on, they danced several more times, pausing occasionally to speak with neighbors or check on Emma, who was being passed contentedly from one maternal figure to another. Olivia found herself enjoying the festivities far more than she'd anticipated, buoyed by Adam's steady presence and the surprisingly warm reception from most of the townspeople. It was during a quieter moment as they stood watching the dancers while Olivia caught her breath that Victoria approached again, this time alone. I believe you promised me a dance, Adam, she said, ignoring Olivia entirely. Adam hesitated, glancing at Olivia. I'm not sure, please, Olivia interrupted, forcing a smile. I could use a rest, and I should check on Emma. After a moment's hesitation, Adam nodded. One dance, he agreed, allowing Victoria to lead him toward the dance floor. Olivia watched as they joined a waltz already in progress. Victoria moved closer than was strictly necessary, her hand lingering on Adam's shoulder, her head tilted up to speak into his ear. Though Adam's posture remained formal, they made a striking couple, both tall and handsome, clearly familiar with each other's movements. They do look well together, don't they? Observed a voice beside her. Olivia turned to find Harrison Hargrove watching the dancers, a calculating expression on his face. They're old friends, I understand, Olivia replied neutrally. More than friends once upon a time, Hargrove said. Victoria had high hopes, still does, I suspect. His sharp eyes shifted to Olivia. "Tell me, Mrs. Blackett, what brought you west from Denver? It's an unusual choice for a young woman alone." The question, combined with his penetrating stare, sent a chill down Olivia's spine. Had he somehow discovered their deception? "I wasn't alone," she said carefully. "I had Emma." "Ah, yes, the child," Hargrove nodded slowly. "Born rather fortuitously after your marriage, I gather." Olivia stiffened. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. Hargrove." "Nothing at all, my dear. Merely making conversation." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though I find it curious that a man like Blackett, who's resisted matrimony for so long, would suddenly marry a woman he barely knew and claim her child as his own. Curious indeed." Before Olivia could formulate a response, a small commotion near the refreshment table caught their attention. Mrs. Peterson was hurrying toward them, Emma wailing in her arms. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Blackett," the storekeeper's wife said anxiously. "She was fine 1 minute, then just started crying. I think she might be hungry." Grateful for the interruption, Olivia took Emma, who immediately clutched at her mother's dress. "Thank you for watching her, Mrs. Peterson. I should probably take her somewhere quieter." As she moved away from Hargrove, Olivia spotted Adam disengaging from Victoria on the dance floor, already moving in her direction with concern evident on his face. He reached her side just as Emma's cries intensified. "What's wrong?" he asked, his hand automatically going to the baby's back. "She's hungry, I think," Olivia replied, trying to soothe Emma, "and tired. It's well past her bedtime." Adam nodded. "We should head back to the ranch." He looked around, spotting Hargrove watching them with obvious interest. "Was he bothering you?" He was. "Asking questions about us." "About Emma." Olivia lowered her voice. "I think he suspects something." A muscle tightened in Adam's jaw. "Hargrove's always looking for leverage. Don't worry about him." He placed his hand protectively at her back. "Let's say our goodbyes." As they made their way through the crowd, thanking their hosts and making excuses about Emma's bedtime, Olivia couldn't shake the uneasiness Hargrove's questions had sparked. Their charade had seemed harmless, even necessary, but now she wondered if they'd underestimated the potential consequences. If someone as powerful as Harrison Hargrove began questioning their story, what might happen to her? To Emma, the ride back to Silver Creek was quieter than their journey to town had been. Emma, exhausted from the evening's excitement, fell asleep almost immediately, leaving Adam and Olivia alone with their thoughts. "I'm sorry about Victoria," Adam said finally, breaking the silence. "She can be persistent." "You don't owe me any explanations," Olivia replied, staring straight ahead. "Our arrangement is one of convenience, nothing more." Adam was quiet for a long moment. "Is that all it is to you?" he asked finally, his voice low. "Convenience." The question hung in the night air between them, loaded with implications Olivia wasn't sure she was ready to explore. Yet she couldn't deny that her feelings for Adam had grown far beyond gratitude or friendship. The jealousy she'd felt watching him dance with Victoria, the warmth that spread through her whenever he was near, the way her heart quickened when he smiled, these weren't the reactions of a woman in a mere arrangement of convenience. But admitting that meant risking everything: her safety, Emma's future, and most of all her heart, which had already been so badly bruised. "I don't know what it is anymore," she confessed quietly. "And that frightens me." Adam's hands tightened on the reins. "Olivia, please," she interrupted. "Not tonight. I need time to think." He nodded, respecting her request for space. The rest of the journey passed in silence, but it was a different quality of silence now, charged with unspoken feelings and possibilities neither was quite ready to voice. When they arrived at the ranch, Adam helped her down from the wagon, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. In the moonlight, his eyes searched hers, asking a question he wouldn't voice aloud. "Good night, Adam," Olivia said softly, stepping back. "And thank you for tonight, for everything." "Good night, Olivia," he replied, his deep voice gentle in the darkness. "Sweet dreams." But as she prepared for bed, laying Emma in her cradle and changing out of her fine dress, Olivia knew sleep would be elusive. Her mind whirled with the events of the evening, Victoria's obvious interest in Adam, Hargrove's pointed questions, and most troublingly, her own confused feelings. She moved to the window, looking out at the moonlit landscape of Silver Creek Ranch. In just a few short weeks, this place had begun to feel like home in a way nowhere had since her parents were alive. And Adam had become someone she couldn't imagine her life without. "What am I going to do?" she whispered to the night, receiving only the soft breathing of her sleeping daughter in response. The answer, she knew, would have to wait for the clear light of day. But as she finally climbed into bed, Olivia couldn't help but wonder if perhaps, against all odds, she'd been granted a second chance at happiness if the lie they'd been living might somehow transform into truth. Morning arrived with no more clarity than the night had offered. Olivia rose early, tending to Emma before making her way to the kitchen where Mrs. Hodges was already preparing breakfast. The housekeeper took one look at Olivia's face and clucked sympathetically. "Troubled night, dear?" she asked, handing Olivia a cup of coffee. "You could say that," Olivia admitted, accepting the cup gratefully. "The social was enlightening." Mrs. Hodges raised an eyebrow. "Met Victoria Hargrove, did you, and her father? He seemed quite interested in the details of my marriage to Adam." The housekeeper frowned. "Harrison Hargrove's a powerful man, but not a kind one. He doesn't like being thwarted, and he had his heart set on joining his daughter to the Blackett Ranch." She patted Olivia's hand. "Don't you worry, though. Adam can handle the Hargroves." "It's not just that," Olivia confessed, lowering her voice though they were alone. "I'm living a lie, Mrs. Hodges. Sooner or later it will catch up to me, to us." "Is it a lie, though?" the older woman asked shrewdly. "The feeling I see between you and Adam looks mighty real to me." Before Olivia could respond, the sound of approaching hoofbeats drew their attention. It was earlier than Adam usually returned from his morning chores, and the rapid pace suggested urgency. Mrs. Hodges moved to the window, peering out with a frown. "It's Reverend Marshall," she said, her voice hardening, "from Willow Creek." Olivia's heart lurched painfully. What would he want here? Nothing good, I'd wager. Mrs. Hodges squared her shoulders. "You stay here with Emma, I'll handle him." But Olivia shook her head, steeling herself. "No. I need to face this, whatever it is." She handed Emma to Mrs. Hodges and stepped onto the porch just as Reverend Marshall dismounted. He looked much as she remembered, tall and thin, with a perpetual expression of disapproval etched into his austere features. His eyes narrowed when he saw her. "Miss Nelson," he said, his voice dripping with righteous condemnation, "I thought I might find you here." "It's Mrs. Blackett now," Olivia replied, lifting her chin. "What brings you to Silver Creek, Reverend?" A cold smile curved his thin lips. "So the rumors are true. You've managed to ensnare Adam Blackett into acknowledging your indiscretion." He glanced toward the house. "Where is your supposed husband? I'd like to speak with him." "Mr. Blackett is tending to ranch business," Olivia said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I'll be happy to convey any message." "I'm sure you would." Reverend Marshall took a step closer. "Did you tell him, I wonder, about Theodore Jenkins? About how you threw yourself at a traveling salesman and got exactly what such behavior deserves?" The cruel words struck like physical blows, but Olivia refused to cower. "You know nothing about what happened." "I know enough," he retorted. "And soon everyone in Copper Springs will know too. Harrison Hargrove sent for me, you see. He was quite interested in what I could tell him about the new Mrs. Blackett. Cold dread washed over Olivia. "What do you want, Reverend?" "Justice," he declared. "Morality, to ensure that sin doesn't go unpunished." His gaze moved past her to the house. "And to see that innocent child placed with a proper Christian family who can raise her in righteousness." "You will never touch my daughter," Olivia said, her voice low and dangerous. "Never. The law may say otherwise once your deception is revealed," the Reverend replied. "An unmarried woman with no visible means of support has no right to raise a child, especially one of questionable parentage." "I believe the lady asked what you wanted," came a deep voice from behind Olivia. She turned to see Adam striding toward them, his expression thunderous. He must have seen the Reverend arrive and come running from the barn. Reverend Marshall straightened, his narrow chest puffing out. "Mr. Blackett." "I was just explaining to Miss Nelson, Mrs. Blackett," Adam corrected, coming to stand beside Olivia. "My wife." "A convenient fiction from what I hear," the Reverend said. "One that Harrison Hargrove is most interested in verifying." Adam's jaw tightened. "What do you want, Marshall? State your business and be gone." The Reverend smiled thinly. "Mr. Hargrove is prepared to be discreet about Miss Nelson's situation, in exchange for certain considerations." "Blackmail," Adam said flatly. "Why am I not surprised?" "A business arrangement," the Reverend corrected. "Mr. Hargrove believes the water rights to Silver Creek would be better managed under his company's control. In exchange for those rights, he's willing to ensure that no one questions the legitimacy of your marriage or the parentage of the child." Olivia gasped. Silver Creek was the lifeblood of the ranch, the reason for its prosperity. Without those water rights, the land would be nearly worthless. "Get off my property," Adam said, his voice dangerously soft. "Consider carefully, Mr. Blackett," Reverend Marshall advised. "Once word spreads about your arrangement with Miss Nelson, your standing in the community will be compromised. And as for her—" He glanced at Olivia with undisguised contempt. "Well, we've already seen how Willow Creek responds to women of her ilk." Adam moved so quickly that neither Olivia nor the Reverend had time to react. In one fluid motion, he seized Marshall by his coat front and lifted him nearly off his feet. "Listen carefully," Adam said, his voice a low growl. "Olivia is my wife in every way that matters. Emma is my daughter. Anyone who says otherwise will answer to me, including Hargrove." He released the Reverend with a small shove. "Now get on your horse and ride back to Willow Creek. And tell Hargrove he can go to hell." Reverend Marshall stumbled backward, his face flushed with anger and fear. "You'll regret this, Blackett. Both of you will." He mounted his horse awkwardly, still trembling with indignation. "This isn't over." They watched in silence as he rode away, dust billowing behind him. Only when he was well out of sight did Olivia let out the breath she'd been holding. "I'm sorry," she whispered, turning to Adam. "This is all my fault. Now you're being threatened because of me, because of the lie we've been living." Adam's expression softened as he looked at her. "Olivia, listen to me. I meant what I said. You are my wife in every way that matters." He took her hands in his. "I know we started this as a convenient fiction, but for me, it stopped being pretend a long time ago." Olivia stared at him, afraid to believe what she was hearing. "Adam, I love you," he said simply. "I think I started falling in love with you that first night, when you stood at the edge of town with Emma in your arms, facing the world alone with more courage than most men I know possess." His thumbs traced gentle circles on her wrists. "I don't care what Hargrove or Marshall or anyone else thinks. I want you and Emma here with me as my family, for real, forever." Tears filled Olivia's eyes, blurring her vision. "But the water rights," Your ranch. Mean nothing without you, he finished. I'll fight Hargrove. I've dealt with men like him before. His gray eyes searched hers. The only question that matters is, what do you want, Olivia? The answer rose from her heart without hesitation. You, she said, her voice breaking. I want you, Adam. I've been afraid to admit it, afraid to trust these feelings after being hurt before. But I love you. I think I've loved you since that first night too, when you extended your hand and said Emma was yours forever. Adam's face transformed with joy. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. She is mine, he murmured against her hair. You both are, if you'll have me. Olivia lifted her face to his, no longer afraid. We will. His lips met hers in a kiss that sealed their commitment more truly than any ceremony ever could. It was tender at first, then deepened with the weeks of unspoken longing they'd both been harboring. Olivia's heart soared with the knowledge that this was real, that the family they'd been pretending to be could now truly exist. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Mrs. Hodges stood in the doorway, Emma in her arms and tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. About time, the housekeeper declared gruffly. I was beginning to think I'd have to lock you two in the root cellar. Adam laughed, keeping one arm around Olivia as he extended the other toward Emma. Mrs. Hodges brought the baby to them, and for the first time they stood together as a true family, not one born of convenience or pretense, but of love. We'll need to be married properly, Adam said, looking down at Olivia. As soon as possible. Judge Porter can perform the ceremony. What about Hargrove? Olivia asked, the specter of his threat still looming. Adam's expression hardened momentarily. Let me worry about Hargrove. You focus on planning our wedding. His smile returned. Our real wedding, Mrs. Almost Blackett. The joy of the moment was too powerful to be overshadowed by Hargrove's threats. As Adam held her and Emma close, Olivia allowed herself to believe that perhaps, against all odds, she had found her happy ending. The road ahead might hold challenges, but they would face them together as a family. And that night, as Emma slept peacefully in her cradle, Olivia lay in Adam's arms in what was now their bedroom, marveling at how completely her life had transformed in the span of a few short weeks. From outcast to beloved, from alone to cherished, it seemed almost too wonderful to be true. What are you thinking? Adam murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. That I never expected to be this happy again, she admitted. After everything that happened, I thought that part of my life was over. And now. He propped himself up on one elbow, gazing down at her with such tenderness that it made her heart ache. Now I believe in second chances, she said, reaching up to touch his face. In love that asks for nothing but gives everything. In the family we're building. Adam caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. I meant what I said that first night, Olivia. Emma is mine forever, and so are you. As she drifted to sleep in his arms, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that whatever trials awaited them, whether from Harrison Hargrove or anyone else, they would weather them together. The lie that had brought them together had blossomed into the most beautiful truth of all, a love strong enough to withstand any storm. The confrontation with Harrison Hargrove came sooner than expected. 3 days after Reverend Marshall's visit, as Adam and Olivia were discussing their wedding plans over breakfast, Diego rode in from the south boundary with news. Riders coming, boss, he reported, his expression grim. Hargrove and about 6 men with him. Adam's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. Mrs. Hodges, please take Olivia and Emma to the back bedroom. Diego, fetch Thomas and tell him to bring my rifle. Then both of you position yourselves by the barn. Adam, Olivia protested, I should be with you. He took her hands, his eyes steady on hers. "I need to know you and Emma are safe. Please do as I ask." After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Adam pressed a quick kiss to her lips, then to Emma's forehead, before moving to the gun cabinet to retrieve his revolver. From the back bedroom window, Olivia watched anxiously as Harrison Hargrove and his men rode into the ranch yard. They weren't openly brandishing weapons, but the tension in their postures was unmistakable. Adam stood on the porch, outwardly relaxed but alert, his hand resting casually near his holster. "Blackett," Hargrove called, reining in his horse. "I believe we have business to discuss." "Any business between us ended when you sent that sanctimonious vulture to threaten my wife," Adam replied evenly. Hargrove dismounted, his expensive boots raising small clouds of dust. "Your wife? Is that what you're still claiming?" he chuckled, glancing at his men. "Marshall told me everything, Blackett. How the schoolteacher disgraced herself with a traveling salesman. How she was cast out of Willow Creek. How you picked her up like a stray dog at the roadside." Adam's expression remained impassive. "Is there a point to this visit, Hargrove? Or did you ride all this way just to spread gossip?" "I came to make you a final offer," Hargrove said, his voice hardening. "Sign over the water rights to Silver Creek, and I'll ensure that no one questions your unusual family arrangement. Refuse, and by this time tomorrow, everyone from here to Denver will know that your marriage is a sham and that child isn't yours." "And if that happens," Adam said calmly, "what do you think will matter more to my neighbors? That I took in a woman in need and claimed her child as my own? Or that Harrison Hargrove is trying to steal land and water rights through blackmail?" Hargrove's face darkened. "You're playing a dangerous game, Blackett." "No game," Adam replied. "Just standing my ground. Olivia is my wife in every way that matters. We're making it official before Judge Porter this Sunday. You and your daughter are welcome to attend the ceremony if you'd like to see for yourselves." "This is your final answer?" Hargrove demanded. "It is." Hargrove studied Adam for a long moment, then nodded to his men. For a heart-stopping moment, Olivia feared they might draw their weapons. Instead, Hargrove remounted his horse. "You've made a powerful enemy today, Blackett," he warned. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," came another voice. Judge Porter rode into the yard, accompanied by 3 other men Olivia recognized from the social. "Unless you want to explain to a grand jury why you're threatening one of the most respected ranchers in the territory." Hargrove's face paled slightly. "Porter, this is a private matter between Blackett and myself." "Not anymore," the judge replied. "Not when you bring armed men onto a man's property to intimidate him. Not when you try to use a good woman's past misfortunes as leverage." He glanced at Adam. "Blackett sent word about your threats. We've been watching the road since dawn." Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Hargrove's bluster deflated visibly. "This isn't the end of it," he muttered, but the threat sounded hollow even to Olivia's ears. "I believe it is," Judge Porter said firmly. "Unless you'd like me to share what I know about certain irregularities in your mining operation with the territorial governor." The 2 men stared at each other for a long moment before Hargrove jerked his horse's reins and signaled to his men. They rode out of the yard without another word, dust billowing in their wake. Only when they were well away did Olivia rush from the house to Adam's side. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight against his chest. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. "I'm fine," he assured her. "Better than fine now that you're here." Judge Porter approached, a twinkle in his blue eyes. "So Sunday, seems I'm performing a wedding." Adam smiled down at Olivia. "If the bride agrees." "She does," Olivia said without hesitation, "with all her heart." The judge nodded approvingly. "I'll be here at noon, and Blackett, For what it's worth, I think you found yourself a treasure. Not many women would stand by their man the way Mrs. Blackett has." "Don't I know it?" Adam agreed, his arm tightening around Olivia's waist. As the judge and his companions rode away, promising to spread the word about the upcoming wedding, Olivia looked up at Adam with wonder. "You sent for the judge." "When?" "The night after Marshall came," Adam admitted. "I knew Hargrove wouldn't let it rest. Porter's been looking for a reason to check his influence for years. This just gave him the opportunity." "You think it's really over?" Adam's expression grew serious. "Hargrove's a proud man. He won't forget this defeat easily. But with Porter and the other ranchers standing with us, he won't risk direct confrontation again." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "We'll need to be vigilant, but I believe the worst is behind us." Olivia nodded, her heart light with relief and love. "Then let's focus on Sunday. On making official what we already know to be true." "That we're a family," Adam said, his eyes warm as they gazed into hers. "You, me, and Emma. Forever." The ranch became a flurry of activity over the next few days as preparations for the wedding took precedence over normal routines. Mrs. Hodges threw herself into baking and cooking, determined that the celebration following the ceremony would be remembered for years to come. Diego and Thomas worked tirelessly to ensure the ranch looked its best, repainting the porch, clearing the yard, and constructing rough benches for guests to sit during the ceremony. Word spread quickly throughout the surrounding area, and soon well wishes and gifts began arriving from neighbors and townsfolk alike. Even those who might have privately questioned the suddenness of the marriage seemed more interested in supporting the couple than in prying into their past. On Saturday evening, as Olivia stood in what would be her last night in the guest bedroom before moving permanently into Adam's room, Mrs. Hodges arrived with a carefully wrapped package. "This came for you today," the housekeeper said, placing the box on the bed. "From Mrs. Peterson in town." Curious, Olivia opened it to find a beautiful white lace veil, clearly vintage but in perfect condition. A note tucked inside read, "For the bride. Every woman deserves to feel beautiful on her wedding day. With warmest wishes, Martha Peterson." Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes as she lifted the delicate lace. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It certainly is," Mrs. Hodges agreed, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "And it will go perfectly with your dress." The dress in question was Olivia's best, a pale blue silk she'd purchased in Denver before Emma was born, when her future still seemed bright and uncomplicated. Mrs. Hodges had helped her alter it slightly to fit her post-pregnancy figure, and though it wasn't a traditional wedding gown, its simplicity suited the occasion. "Are you nervous?" Mrs. Hodges asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "A little," Olivia admitted. "Not about marrying Adam, I'm certain about that, but about everything else, starting a new life, being a proper wife and mother." She smiled ruefully. "I never thought I'd have this chance." "You deserve it," the housekeeper said firmly. "Both of you do. And that little one deserves parents who love each other as much as you two do." Olivia's smile grew more confident. "We do love each other, don't we? It happened so quickly, yet it feels like the most natural thing in the world." "That's how you know it's real," Mrs. Hodges said, patting her hand. "When it feels like coming home." The next morning dawned clear and beautiful, as if nature itself approved of the union about to take place. Olivia woke early, her heart racing with anticipation. According to tradition, Adam had spent the night in the bunkhouse with Diego and Thomas, leaving the main house to Olivia, Emma, and Mrs. Hodges. As she fed Emma and prepared for the day ahead, Olivia's mind drifted back to the night Adam had found her at the edge of Willow Creek. How desperate she had been, how certain that her life was irreparably ruined. And now, Mere weeks later, she stood on the threshold of a happiness she'd never dared hope for. By 11 o'clock, guests began arriving, neighboring ranchers and their families, shopkeepers from Copper Springs, even a few former students from Willow Creek, who had defied convention to support their beloved teacher. Judge Porter arrived promptly at noon, resplendent in his formal black coat, and carrying a Bible that looked almost as ancient as the hills surrounding Silver Creek. Adam waited for her in the yard, where an archway of wildflowers had been erected for the occasion. He wore a new black suit and a crisp white shirt, his dark hair slicked back, his face freshly shaved. But it was the look in his eyes as Olivia approached, Emma in her arms and the borrowed veil floating around her shoulders, that took her breath away, a look of such profound love and wonder that she felt tears threatening. Mrs. Hodges took Emma as Olivia reached Adam's side. He took her hands in his, squeezing gently, his eyes never leaving hers. "Dearly beloved," Judge Porter began, his deep voice carrying across the assembled guests, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Adam Blackett and Olivia Nelson in holy matrimony." The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When the time came to exchange vows, Adam spoke with such sincerity that several of the women in attendance dabbed at their eyes. "Olivia," he said, his voice steady and clear, "when I found you that night, I thought I was offering you protection. What I didn't realize was that you were saving me too from loneliness, from a life half lived. You and Emma have brought light and laughter back to Silver Creek." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to love you both for all my days, to protect you with everything I have, and to be the husband and father you both deserve." Olivia's voice trembled slightly as she responded, "Adam, you took my hand when the world had turned its back. You claimed as yours forever a child you had no obligation to. You offered shelter when I had nowhere to turn." She blinked back tears. "But more than that, you offered love when I'd stopped believing it existed. I promise to be your partner in all things, to love you faithfully through whatever life brings, and to make Silver Creek a home filled with joy for all our days. By the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado," Judge Porter concluded moments later, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Adam, you may kiss your bride." As Adam drew her into his arms and sealed their vows with a tender kiss, cheers erupted from the assembled guests. Olivia felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. What had begun as a convenient fiction, a desperate arrangement to protect her and Emma, had transformed into the most profound truth of her life. She loved Adam Blackett with all her heart, and miracle of miracles, he loved her too. The celebration continued well into the evening, with food and drink flowing freely, music provided by a fiddler from town, and dancing under the stars. Adam and Olivia moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes, always returning to each other's side as if drawn by an invisible force. As the night deepened and guests began to depart, Adam found Olivia sitting on the porch, Emma sleeping against her shoulder. He sat beside her, slipping his arm around her waist and drawing her close. "Happy, Mrs. Blackett?" he asked softly. "Completely," she replied, resting her head against his shoulder. "I keep thinking I might wake up and find this was all a dream." "Not a dream," he assured her, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Though I sometimes wonder what I did to deserve such a blessing." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the last of their guests disappear down the road toward town. Then Adam spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "I was thinking about something you said in your vows about me claiming Emma as mine when I had no obligation to." He shifted slightly to look into her eyes. "I want you to know that loving Emma isn't an obligation or a burden. It's a privilege, and I was wondering." How would you feel about making it official, about me adopting her legally as my daughter?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes once more. "You would do that?" In a heartbeat, Adam replied without hesitation. "I meant what I said that first night, Olivia. She's mine forever. I want the law to recognize what my heart already knows." Overwhelmed with emotion, Olivia could only nod. Adam gathered her and Emma closer, enveloping them both in his embrace as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Our family," he murmured against her hair. "Our home. Our forever." "Forever," Olivia echoed, her heart so full she thought it might overflow. As night settled fully over Silver Creek Ranch, the newly official Blackett family retreated to the house that was now truly their shared home. Mrs. Hodges had tactfully retired to her own quarters after helping Olivia put Emma to bed in her cradle, which had been moved to a small adjoining room to give the newlyweds privacy. In the master bedroom, now their bedroom, Adam drew Olivia into his arms, his eyes dark with love and desire. "I've dreamed of this moment," he confessed, tracing the curve of her cheek with gentle fingers. "Of you here as my wife, my true wife." "As have I," Olivia admitted, her hands resting against his chest, feeling the strong beat of his heart beneath her palms. "Though I scarcely dared hope it could come true." "Believe it," he whispered, lowering his mouth to hers. "Believe in us." And as the night deepened around Silver Creek Ranch, Olivia surrendered completely to the love she had found against all odds, knowing that whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them together, she, Adam, and Emma. A family forged not by blood but by choice, by sacrifice, and by a love strong enough to overcome any obstacle. 5 years later, Olivia sat on the same porch where she had once contemplated her uncertain future, watching as Adam taught their son, James, now 3, to ride his first pony. Emma, nearly 6 and the spitting image of her mother save for a stubborn streak that could only have come from her adoptive father, sat beside Olivia, carefully stitching a sampler with the steady concentration she brought to all her tasks. The years had brought changes to Silver Creek Ranch, a new wing added to the house to accommodate their growing family expanded cattle operations that had made Adam one of the most successful ranchers in the territory, and the small school Olivia had established for the children of nearby ranches, including their own. Harrison Hargrove had eventually sold his mining interests and moved east after a series of failed attempts to undermine Adam's standing in the community. Victoria had married a banker from Denver and, by all accounts, seemed content with her new life far from Copper Springs. As for Reverend Marshall, he had been replaced at the Willow Creek Church by a younger, more compassionate minister who had reached out to Olivia with a sincere apology for his predecessor's cruelty. While she doubted she would ever feel entirely comfortable in the town that had cast her out, the gesture had helped heal old wounds. "Mama, look," Emma exclaimed, holding up her sampler. "I finished the B for Blackett. It's beautiful, sweetheart," Olivia praised, examining the neat stitches. "Your father will be so proud when he sees it. Can I show him now?" Emma asked eagerly. "Let him finish with Jamie first," Olivia suggested, smoothing her daughter's dark curls. "Then you can show him." Emma nodded, her serious expression so like Adam's that it made Olivia smile. From the first, he had treated Emma as entirely his own, never making any distinction between her and James, who had been born exactly 9 months after their wedding. The adoption had been formalized within weeks of their marriage, with Judge Porter handling the paperwork personally. In the corral, James let out a whoop of delight as Adam led the pony in a circle, the little boy clutching the saddle horn with determined concentration. Olivia's heart swelled with love for them, both her serious, steady son with his father's storm-gray eyes, and the man who had saved her from despair and given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. "Mrs. Blackett," called Mrs. Hodges from the doorway. "That pie's cool enough to cut if you want to call the menfolk in for a slice." "Thank you, Mrs. Hodges," Olivia replied with a smile. "Emma, would you like to ring the bell for your father and brother?" Emma jumped up eagerly, rushing to the dinner bell that hung by the porch steps. As its clear tone rang out across the ranch yard, Adam looked up, waving acknowledgement. He lifted James from the pony, settling the boy on his shoulders before heading toward the house. "Pie time," he called as they approached. "Apple," Olivia confirmed. "Mrs. Hodges baked it special for Jamie's riding lesson." "Did you see me, Mama?" James asked excitedly as Adam set him down on the porch. "I rode all by myself." "I certainly did," Olivia assured him, brushing dust from his cheek. "You're a natural horseman, just like your father." "And I finished my sampler, Papa," Emma announced, holding up her handiwork for Adam's inspection. He examined it with exaggerated seriousness. "This is fine work, Emma. You have your mother's talented hands." He ruffled her hair affectionately. "Both my children making me proud today." The simple statement, delivered with such natural warmth, brought tears to Olivia's eyes, happy tears for the life they had built, for the love that surrounded them, for the journey that had begun with a desperate woman, an unwanted child, and a cowboy who had taken her hand and claimed that child as his forever. As they gathered around the kitchen table, Mrs. Hodges serving generous slices of pie to the children while Adam pulled Olivia close for a quick kiss, she marveled at how completely her life had transformed. From outcast to beloved wife, from desperate mother to matriarch of a thriving family, from someone with no future to a woman whose days stretched ahead filled with purpose and joy. "Happy," Adam murmured against her ear, his arm warm around her waist. "Beyond words," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "Every day with you, with our family. It's more than I ever dared hope for." His eyes, still capable of making her heart race after all these years, crinkled at the corners as he smiled down at her. "That night when I found you on the road, I told you Emma was mine forever. What I didn't know then was that you'd both become so essential to me that I can't imagine life without you." "You won't have to," Olivia promised, reaching up to touch his beloved face. "We're yours forever, Adam Blackett. And you are ours." As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows of Silver Creek Ranch, painting golden light across the kitchen where laughter and love flowed as freely as the creek that gave the ranch its name, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that she had found her true home not in a place, but in the hearts of those who had chosen her, just as she had chosen them. From the darkness of rejection had come the brightest light of all, a family bound not by convention or obligation, but by the purest, most enduring love. And though the path that had brought her here had been marked by pain and loss, Olivia wouldn't have changed a single step, for it had led her exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of the man who had seen her worth when the world turned away, and who had claimed her unwanted child as his own with a promise that would last forever.